Canonical released Ubuntu 25.10, codenamed Questing Quokka, on October 9th, and this release is packed with some of the most significant changes we have seen in years. If you're thinking about trying Ubuntu or you're already using it, you need to know what's happening here because this isn't just another incremental update. Let's start with the basics. Ubuntu 25.10 is a standard interim release, which means it comes with 9 months of support running through July 2026. Now, here's why this release matters more than usual. This is the last interim release before Ubuntu 26.0 for LTS arrives in April 2026. What that means is, Canonical is using 25.10 as a testing ground for all the features that will eventually make their way into the next long-term support version. So everything we are seeing today is basically a preview of what millions of users will be running for years to come. The first thing you're going to notice when you boot up Ubuntu 25.10 is GNOME 49. This is the latest version of the GNOME desktop environment, and it brings some nice quality of life improvements. But the bigger story here is in the version number. It's what's missing. Ubuntu 25.10 runs exclusively on Wayland. The x.org display server is gone. Now, if you've been following Linux news, you know that the translation to Wayland has been happening for years, but there's always been hesitation because of compatibility issues, especially with NVIDIA graphics cards. Well, Canonical has decided it's time to move forward. The good news is that NVIDIA drivers are now properly support suspend and resume functionality on Wayland, which was one of the major pain points. This is a bold move and it signals that Wayland is finally mature enough for mainstream desktop use. Speaking of the desktop experience, Ubuntu 25.10 introduces some thoughtful improvements. The lock screen now includes media controls, which means you can play, pause, or skip tracks without having to unlock your computer. You'll also see track information and album thumbnails right there on the lock screen. It's one of those small features that you don't realize you need until you have it. The App Center has also been enhanced with better accessibility support, including improved high contrast modes, screen reading capabilities, and keyboard navigation. These might seem like minor details, but they make Ubuntu more usable for everyone. Canonical has also swapped out some of the default applications. The old image viewer is gone, replaced by Lupe, which is a more modern and streamlined image viewing application. The default terminal emulator is now Tixes, which brings a fresh interface and better performance compared to the previous terminal. These changes are part of a broader effort to modernize the default Ubuntu experience and align it more closely with upstream GNOME development. Now let's talk about what's happening under the hood, because this is where things get really interesting. Ubuntu 25.10 is powered by Linux kernel 6.17, which brings the latest hardware support and performance improvements. But the real story is the massive shift toward Rust-based system components. For those who aren't familiar, Rust is a programming language that's designed to prevent memory safety issues, which are responsible for a huge percentage of security vulnerabilities in software. Ubuntu 25.10 replaces several critical system components written in C with Rust implementations. The most significant change is sudo-rs, a Rust-based re-implementation of sudo. Now, sudo is the command you use to run administrative tasks on Linux systems. It's one of the most security-critical components of any Unix-like operating system. The traditional sudo implementation has been around for decades and is written in C, which while powerful is prone to memory safety bugs. Sudo-rs aims to eliminate entire classes of vulnerabilities by leveraging Rust's memory safety guarantees. This is a huge deal for system security. Ubuntu 25.10 also ships with Rust core utils as a default implementation of GNU core utilities. These are the basic file and text manipulation commands that you use every day. Things like 1s, cp, mv, and cat. Again, the traditional versions are written in C, and the Rust versions offer the same functionality with improved safety and often better performance. This transition to Rust isn't just about chasing trends, it's about building a more secure foundation for the entire operating system. Another major infrastructure change is the switch to Dracut for handling the initial RAM disk. If you're not familiar with what that means, the initial RAM disk is a temporary file system that's loaded onto memory during the boot process before the actual root file system is mounted. It contains the drivers and tools needed to mount the real file system. Ubuntu has traditionally used initRAM's tools, but 25.10 switches to Dracut, which offers better system integration and more flexibility. Dracut also brings support for some interesting use cases, including Bluetooth support in the boot environment and NVMe over fabrics, which is a protocol for accessing remote NVMe storage devices over a network. These might sound like niche features, but they open up new possibilities for enterprise deployments and specialized hardware configurations. The time synchronization daemon has also changed. Ubuntu 25.10 uses Crony as the default NTP client instead of the previous implementation. Crony is known for being more accurate and more efficient, especially on systems that don't have constant network connectivity or that frequently suspend and resume. Security gets another boost with TPM-backed full disk encryption. The Trusted Platform module is a hardware chip on modern computers that can securely store encryption keys. By integrating TPM support directly into the disk encryption setup, Ubuntu 25.10 makes it easier to set up encrypted systems that can automatically unlock without requiring you to type a password at every boot, while still maintaining strong security. This is particularly useful in laptops and mobile devices where you want the security of encryption without the inconvenience. Ubuntu 25.10 also expands hardware support in interesting ways. ARM64 systems now include a minimal UEFI boot stub called Stubble, which improves boot reliability on ARM-based computers. This is important as more and more ARM devices come to market, from single-board computers to high-end workstations. There's also experimental support for RISC-V desktop sessions. RISC-V is an open-source processor architecture that's gaining traction in the industry, and Ubuntu is positioning itself to be ready when RISC-V desktop hardware becomes more widely available. The support requires systems that implement the RVA23 ISA profile, which is the latest standardized extension set for RISC-V processors. On the development side, Ubuntu 25.10 ships with GCC 15, the latest version of GNU compiler collection, along with Python 3.13.7, OpenJDK, Java 25, and Rust 1.85. If you're a developer, this means you have access to the latest language features and optimizations right out of the box. Now, no release is perfect, and Ubuntu 25.10 does have one known issue worth mentioning. There's currently a bug affecting Flatpak installations. Users are experiencing failures due to revocfs fuse unmount errors, which is related to an app armor configuration problem. The good news is that Canonical is aware of the issue and a fix is expected to be released soon. If you rely heavily on Flatpak applications, you might want to wait a few days for the patch to land before upgrading. So, what does all this mean for you as a user? If you're currently running Ubuntu 24.04 LTS, you probably don't need to rush to upgrade. LTS releases are supported for 5 years and they are designed to be stable and reliable. But if you're the type who likes living on the cutting edge, or if you want to help test the features that will eventually land in Ubuntu 26.04 LTS, then 25.10 is absolutely worth trying. The shift to Wayland-only, the adoption of Rust-based core utilities, and the modernized desktop experience all point toward a secure, more performant, and more polished future for Ubuntu. The release represents Canonical's commitment to modernization and security. By embracing Rust, by moving fully to Wayland, and by updating core system infrastructure, Ubuntu is positioning itself for the next decade of desktop Linux. The changes in 25.10 might seem technical, and some of them are, but they all add up to an operating system that's safer, faster, and more capable than ever before. Well, that's everything you need to know about Ubuntu 25.10 Questing Quokka. I have placed an easy step-by-step installation guide in the description box below, and I am your host from Italian News Channel. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like and hit that subscribe button for more Linux and open source coverage. Thanks for watching, and like always, I'll see you in the next one.